Hey guys, it is Saturday here on Pagan Perspective. I am your Saturday host Brendan, and this week we are talking about ancestor work. So a question this week comes from Connor Keefe, and the question is, could we please do a week on ancestors? Would you give the basics on venerating them and how to include them in your daily life and practice? I feel I've been overlooking them and I found it hard to find good info on this. Thanks. So short and sweet, really question-like, but large, massive discussion topic here. So for me, with ancestor work, I come from the reclaiming tradition, which has really kind of tapped me into more of my ancestor work than any of the other traditions I've worked with. So when doing ancestor work within that tradition, we look at ancestors' blood, so those that are blood related to us and that are our legacy and our history and where we came from. We also look at the ancestors of place, so that would be the traditional landowners, those of this place, which might also include, well actually not might also, does include like animals and plants and rocks and the living environment itself. And then you also have ancestors of the craft. So that is looking at the ancestors that have, our work is our legacy. So those that may have founded a tradition that you belong to, people who've written books that have influenced your work, all those that have helped bring the path and the magic to us in the way that it is now. And it may be teachers, it may be initiators, mentors, all those sort of people, those people that have really kind of inspired your work. And sometimes, depending if you belong to a hereditary tradition, that may also cross over and be your ancestors of blood. And this also comes from like, just pretty much any connection that has influenced and deepened your connection to magic. So how do you work with these ancestors, I guess on like a daily practice or develop a discipline of working with them? So the best way to kind of work with, I'll do it in the 3 different strains, so working with ancestors of blood, find out about your family history, so your family tree. Really, I'm in the process of doing that as a journey, self-exploration, kind of initiation into my family history sort of journey. And it's really about finding my connections, where my family's come from, where they've traveled. I went on to, National Geographic, and I did the whole genealogy project and found out where like I'd gone to, like blood-wise histories, transitioning, all that sort of stuff through a lot of the history and the genetic identifiers and markers within my current history. But looking at all of that, and then from another point I've gone to my current family and really worked out which generations back we have information about, from where they've come from, how much information is out there, so kind of building a family tree back from that. A recommended site that I've been using is like Ancestry, not Ancestry.com. I think it's Family DNA, which was linked to me from the Genographic project, I believe it's called. So I was using that kind of connection, and that's linked me to other people who may link into the tree somehow. Genie or Jenny.com, which is a genealogy website as well, can help link you to that all information. There's people that are curators on that site, and then they can help link up trees and access information that's already within the database there for you. So really looking at it from that point, but even just knowing your current family and that connection, telling stories. If you're a things person like me, like objects and all that sort of stuff, you may have pieces that connect you to those particular ancestors or family members, or memories attached. So stories, photos, recipes is another way that you can also connect to there. So maybe incorporating pieces of your family into everyday life. So it might be cooking your grandmother's apple pie recipe, or watching your grandfather's favorite TV show, or going to the park that your great-grandmother loved, or that sort of thing. Like really inhabiting that sort of relationship there. And you may want to build an altar to the ancestors of the blood. So it might be those items that you have. So whether it's photos, it might just be a letter that you had from them. It can be as simple as just writing pieces, like pieces of paper with their names on them. You might want to write them letters. So things that you wish you could say to them currently, and just start collecting those up, sort of thing. So you might do that for a full cycle of the year, and like from Samhain to Samhain, and at Samhain you'll read those letters out, and just kind of have that moment with them. In another way, like it's just past here for us for Samhain, so you may like to do a dumb supper and sit down and have like a full meal with them. Even maybe once a week in your house, you might have set an extra plate at your table or something like that for the beloved, like the beloved dead of your family. So the ancestors of the blood. When it comes to ancestors of the land, I would say research local history. So really look at, for us here, where I live in Brisbane, we're on the Yagara and the Turrbal crossover land area. So whenever doing ritual work, and public rituals especially, we'll always acknowledge the traditional landowners of this place, and just looking into that information and finding out what you can about that. But also going out and exploring the land, so looking at what animals are within that area, looking at what particular trees grow and all that sort of stuff, and just noticing when things, like I guess kind of you can look out there, it's really, I live in an area where there seems to be occasional possums that will get hit by cars and that sort of thing, so just really honouring them through that sort of process, because they're part of the environment around me here, and just acknowledging their existence within that space as well, and plants that I've had that have died and that sort of thing, which are all parts of my kind of experience. Even places like if you're not living where you grew up, sort of thing, going back there and leaving offerings can be nice. Yeah, just learning about really the history of the land and the places, and if you live in a house, you might like do offerings to, I guess, like the previous inhabitants of the house and that sort of thing. Unless of course it's like a new house or estate, but it might be then to the land spirits and that sort of thing. And then we come to like ancestors of the craft, so it may be like having a collection of a particular writer's books or that sort of thing, or have some images of them, creating like an altar to them for the mighty dead, so those that are like the inspiration for your path. I know that like within, from what I understand within fairy tradition, there is that real reverence for Victor and Cora Anderson, who were really the lifeblood of that tradition, which is now the legacy that lives with anyone that practices that tradition. Maybe teachers that have inspired you along the way, having photos of them, particular books that have inspired you along the way. It might be like phrases or quotes from there that you can put into places. It's really just living your practice. Like that's the best way to keep a connection of reference to your ancestors. A craft is really just keep practicing your craft and working your magic and exploring it and being active in it and maintaining that legacy, really, because at the end of the day, looking at it with ancestor work, we are the legacy and culmination of the ancestors of blood, the ancestors of the land, and the ancestors of our craft. I am a legacy as I am, and the best way that I can do that is to be present within the world, to engage the world every day, in whatever way I do, with the legacy that I've been given as a genetic inhabitant of my family's bloodlines, and the legacy that I'm given as a physical-bodied, nourished by the environment around me being, and then of course the inspiration and legacy that I carry from the ancestors of the craft, so those that have inspired my magic, that have grown and developed and challenged me, that have really pushed me to become the witch that I am now, and embodied and present and potent in magic. So really, by living your life, you're in a way really doing your honor and reverence to the ancestors. But lots of research and lots of engagement with that is, I think, the best way that you can do that. I'm still very fresh and very new to all of this, so trying to make the most of what I can with the knowledge and practice that I have. But that's it for this week. I will see you next weekend. But for now, much love and blessings, and have a beautiful weekend. Mwah!